When I was about to self-publish my first ebook, I was shaking. I remember the sensation of my trembling body, the fear going through my spine. It was the same physical fear from when I did ocean swims in big swells. One in particular in Newport Beach comes to mind. I can see both my past selves side by side, and the sensations in their bodies exactly the same. Excitement, determination, fear in equal measures. An inner voice saying, I'm doing this. I did them, both of those things. I published the book, I completed the 1 kilometer swim. Both were as challenging as I thought they would be. I had uploaded the file, completed the summaries, made all the hard decisions about the information. I thought once I had the promotions and the blurbs, the summaries, the cover, with the collateral all ready to go, that from that point it was going to be a breeze. But no. Pressing the button to publish it, well, I subestimated what that would take. That little action. The rush of adrenaline, the butterflies in the belly, the irrational desire to hide under the covers and just forget about it. It took my whole being in both my hands to make it happen. Turns out that writing the book, the excruciating process of editing, and feedback, the months of work are easy by comparison. I promised in previous chapters that we would have an episode about resistance, and here it is. Creativity in any form resists being finished. Resistance is intrinsic to the process. Welcome to Creative Space Mastery Podcast, the show about how to establish a framework to get your creative practice going, bringing in consistent creative productivity. I'm Tanya Crivalenti, an author who has been on the storytelling path for 20 years now. In joy and in chaos, and I'm able to be productive every week. I invite artists and all types of creators out there to hear about a practical process, metaphors, and examples in order to achieve creative space mastery. First thing to know is that resistance is different from lack of inspiration. It is more a fear of completion. There is great literature about this matter. 2 books that changed everything for me were The Icarus Deception by Seth Godin, which I call the Green Book because of its green cover, and The War of Art by Steven Pressfield. Resistance is mostly a fear that we have in completing projects, exposing them to scrutiny, putting that precious and vulnerable part of ourselves up for others to judge, criticize, and possibly condemn and trample on. Or even worse, do nothing and reach no one. This fear is literally paralyzing. It runs deep. And sometimes you don't even know it is there because you are at the beginning of a creation. And when you are unaware of this emotion, it will manifest in the strangest ways. It will come in strange desires to do something else during your creative time, like clean windows or sleep or shop for shoes online. You will tend to get distracted without a rational reason for that. You know you love your creative time once you get doing it, but you struggle getting to it, starting, and getting your hands dirty. It is not that you aren't inspired, but that something strange, a weird sort of procrastination keeps happening. If you look inside, you will often find this fear of completion. As I said, it is an intrinsic part of the artistic process. It is always there. Having your artwork or whatever you create made public, possibly receiving bad reviews, is terrifying. There are trolls out there. There are unkind people in the world. There are unreasonable people and angry people abound. You have no defense against these types, and knowing that with most of them there will be no arguments and no winning, you will have to accept that there might be people out there who will dislike your content. Some who may misunderstand, misappropriate, misconstruct, and even hate your creations, and even direct that hate at you personally. No wonder artists and creators have this fear in them. Especially now with the world of social media and anonymous trolls who hide behind the veil of screen invisibility. But there are ways to break through resistance and fight with bravery and ethics. From the last episodes, we have determined that for us, creative space is something you establish right now with whatever time you can give it, involving all activities relating to your art. It is recurring, contractual, it is an imperfect process, and it is a protected space for inspiration to come through the middle. In previous episodes, we have discussed about setting a recurring time for creating, declaring what it is that you truly want to do, bravely declaring your passion. We talked about creating with focus as a professional. Then we discussed about following the ducks of inspiration, your true muse, and what it is to have chaos under management and ride the lows gracefully. We talked about the art of having fun doing whatever, and how there are no limits to what you can do with that. We explored setting some rules for yourself to protect you from falling down some rabbit holes and losing your time unproductively, followed by how to create an impermeable membrane and protect your time from others. We discussed not being alone in the cosmos, surrounding yourself with knowledge, with people who can support you, with sources of inspiration. Next, we talked about mixing it up, varying techniques, locations, and creating variety to spice up and innovate your creative output. Today, we are discussing resistance and how to break through it to be able to reach creative flow consistently. Ethics is your first line of defense. Creating your truth, creating from a desire to build a positive impact in the world comes first. This doesn't mean all that you create is light and pure and virginal. People creating a charity to fight against abuse or injustice, or writing about that, will always be talking about good things and dealing lightness. There will be darkness and shadows. In my fiction, I have terrible darkness in characters, and my characters are nuanced, with positives and negatives in them. They will have attitudes that I don't condone, and things that they do that are not me in various instances. But the general message of the books are that of a world of inclusion and people working together to overcome hurdles. I can stand by my creations with a clear conscience. Even though if people don't read the full book, they may have a wrong impression in the beginning. If you have good intent, your bravery will be there for you, because you know that what you're creating is right. Another example is fiction with violence. Even though it portrays horrible acts, often it serves as a means to show light on how to avoid the same sort of violence, or simply a way to bring people together in moments of entertainment. Dark arts contrast with reflections of light. What needs to be pure is the artist's intent, the motive for creation, so they don't torture themselves with fear of having it published, because nothing that's out there is untrue for them, or out there to do harm, or to cause jealousy, or for pure egotistical reasons. If your creations are being created for a higher purpose, resistance lightens up. So check who you're creating for. Are you trying to prove something to someone else? If yes, let that go. A better reason is to prove to yourself that you can do it. The most classical way resistance manifests is a laziness to start, a strong difficulty in starting a project, starting the creative day on time, the enormous starting energy required to open the file, start the computer, look at the research, think of the title, write the first word of the day. You feel the whole thing is insurmountable. You want to give the whole thing up. But be aware, because resistance can appear at any point in the project, not only at the start. And it is very common to impede you from completing something. You write a whole book and it simply never gets published. Writing a book and hiding it in a drawer or folder these days. Remember the story I told you about people saying, I want to write for myself? I bet a lot of them were facing resistance and didn't even know that it was that. At the first letter of rejection, that is that. They put it away. Let's address one issue at a time. To start, you trick yourself. You remove the pressure of the size of the project and the overwhelming amount of things you still have to do. You say that all you have to do for that day is a little thing, a test of the waters. You say, for example, that you will open the computer and write one phrase. If no ideas come, that's that. You're done for the day, you can go to the beach. You choose one little task to do with your creative practice. If you are uninspired for real, you try the little task, nothing will happen. You will stand there trying to create something in a blank space for some time. No creative juices will come through. This is a rarity though, if you are in the right creative path for you. If what you were feeling was resistance though, you will start to have ideas and the energy will come, the pressure will be gone, and immediately you will get through resistance and your creative day will have get started. You will know it is a trick and it will still work every time. I have been doing it for years and it doesn't fail. Because you didn't push yourself and crack the whip saying you had to work all day like a slave. You allowed resistance to relax its grip, tricking it. And then you remember the feeling of creative flow and forget the fear. Now, addressing the fear of completion is a little more challenging. If it is completely paralyzing you, if you feel you need a little more help than a podcast, listen to episode 9 about finding the support you need. For normal sort of fear, the way I think about it is that no one likes the same things. Even the most delicious food, some people dislike them. There is no universal beauty or taste. I can guarantee there are people who will dislike my writings, my ideas, my content. There is nothing I can do about that. On the other hand, if anything I write or say can help someone in their creative way, I'm on my inspired path. This is the reason for which I'm alive. And this is stronger than the fear or the crushing that comes with rejection. When I received the feedback that I told you about in the previous episode, at the end of my master's, that there was a long way to go in terms of style, it was a decisive moment. At that point, I almost gave up. Resistance almost crushed my spirit. What I found to keep me going was something that brought me joy and no criticism. I tricked myself out of resistance. On a big or small scale, you trick yourself around resistance. Because resistance is the fear of things that are out of your control, that may never be. Things that will be, but may be of a completely different form, like rejection. Rejection is part of life. The better you are at dealing with it, at accepting and creating despite it, the more joy you will find in your creative life. Then comes dealing what feels like personal and unreasonable attacks. Some creators will deal with controversial and difficult themes that will require a lot of bravery. It is worth remembering that people who don't know us cannot be, in reality, attacking us. Their ranting says everything about them and has often enough nothing to do with us. Their issues, insecurities, lacks, sufferings, misconceptions, traumas are the real motivators for their behaviors. You have nothing to do with that. Racism, bigotry, prejudices, anger, limiting thoughts, we don't have any control over that. We are, fortunately enough, in a much more enlightened world than we have ever been. Just going through the onboarding courses for my masters filled me with joy. The quality and quantity of enlightened conversations, the training towards better attitudes and inclusive behaviors the new generation has opposed to what our past generations had was inspiring. I realized sadly how much I have been sexually harassed in my life. Maybe I harassed people in my life without realizing too, and that horrifies me much more than anything else. There is still a long way to go. Many countries who are far from where we are, in Australia, and there is much to be done than just the theoretical part. But knowing that society is going the right direction, that is extremely positive, and that helps break resistance. That pushes you through the fears for you to be able to face the possibilities of what can come. If it comes to that, you face it knowing for each one reasonable person there are supporters out there too. I've realized last weekend, and now and then I'm hit with this realization again, that I live an extraordinary life. I roller skate in one of the most stunning cities in the world with a group of people who dress in absurd costumes, full of light and glitter often. I dance in open and closed spaces with hundreds of people sometimes. I've interviewed Justin Bieber in 2012 and performed in front of 20,000 people with the Spanish Harlem Orchestra for the Cine Jazz Festival way back when. It is extraordinary, but only because I brave resistance every day, every week, with each episode, each word, each blog, each post, each book, with deciding to start on an academic research path later in life. I keep waiting for the moment when something will make things easier for me, a break maybe. Wouldn't it be lovely if one of my posts went viral? If I met someone who liked me and he asked me out just like that, easily. When people approach our dancers in the park, often they say, "I couldn't dance, I look bad." I always try to explain that for me, it's not how you look that matters, how you feel. Dancers in our group look everything. They look beautiful in all their shapes, size, colors, genders, ages, and levels of ability because they are all enjoying themselves so much. I couldn't live my extraordinary life if I wasn't able to break through the fears of judgment and criticism. If you came to this podcast to create anything, persist on your original intent. Adjust the sails, follow the ducks of inspiration. If you started with one idea and then it changes to something else slightly or completely different, that happens all the time. I started last year unemployed and ended up applying for a PhD. Changing and adapting is great. Yielding to resistance and giving up, that's not. That will probably bring a dull pain, a constant sense of dissatisfaction, an undefinable itch, likely to last the rest of your life. In summary, resistance is the fear of creating something, making it public, putting it out there to be criticized, the exposure of the most precious part of yourself. Because often when we decide to embark on our creative paths, we find the core of what makes us, us, that indefinable core. When we start on this creative path, we touch the most tender center of us, that thing that is beside anyone else in our lives, beyond any other thought, the thing that can keep us going through happiness and sadness, can carry us through and beyond grief, can give us purpose to suffering, can work for the greater good. To see the fragile thing exposed, scrutinized, and criticized, especially at first, can be terrifying and excruciating. When you don't find the right mentors, when people don't get you, don't get what you want, all you want to do is hide and give up. Or when you've been at it for years and years and years and barely have seen any progress. Or when life isn't fair, you may be in a place that speaks another language. People may not be like you, or not like the way you look, your gender, your race, your age, the way you sound. But then the alternative would be yielding and not creating. That could feel like being buried alive or being frozen in space. For me, paraphrasing what the book saying in Star Trek, resistance shall always be futile. Persevere, because the journey is all there is no end. Only the end is the end. There are always challenges, always resistance, always twists and turns. There's no perfection on this path or this plan. There's just the way ahead. This is it. If you have set up a recurring time to create, declared your passion bravely, dedicated yourself professionally to this time of creation, when you follow your dots of inspiration to know what you want to work on, during which time you manage your chaos wisely, riding the lows gracefully, and mastering the art of having fun doing whatever crap you want to do. You then have set up the rules to safeguard you from your rabbit holes, and you have set down the boundaries for other people. You have surrounded yourself with a support system, and now you are mixing it up, finding inventive ways to spark creativity. Next, you stay the course, brave resistance, trick it, and being ethical and persevering, you are on your way to have a space for inspiration to glide through the middle. Thank you for listening to Creative Space Mastery Podcast. You will find all about this discussion at creativespacemastery.com and hope to catch you at my next episode. If you like it, give the show some stars, write a review, and share it with someone who could enjoy it. See you next time. Ciao!